I hate to admit it, but I agree with Maddox on this one, man. This was a tough fight to score, but Madrimov was definitely in the fight, man.
The biggest and that 13.5 pounds.
You know, and he's
I like about Madrimov in line.
Joe, can you start over?
It's kind of like,
but the fact being
150 and but right now,
wicked.
Is Terence Crawford's jab good enough to beat Canelo? You just saw 21 jabs from Crawford from round 1 against Madrimov. He landed only 3. It was fast, it was quick, and when it landed it was accurate, but Madrimov stopped 96% of them. And apart from a round and a half maybe, it really didn't get any better for Crawford and his jab. Did I mention it looked relatively weak, sometimes very? Crawford went from landing, according to Compubox, some 40% of his jabs in his Spence fight to this one where he landed 17, and I thought that was generous. But instead of Madrimov getting praised for taking away Crawford's jab, Crawford was praised for winning the fight with it. Except a lot of people had Madrimov winning the fight. So how did Madrimov take away Crawford's jab? What's wrong with Crawford's jab? How good is it? In this fight, Terence Crawford threw mostly single, naked jabs, and he telegraphed them in a variety of ways. And as a natural counterpuncher, his jab isn't very strong anyway because he tends to use it to get you to react to it so that he can counter the reaction. So basically his jab technique is not elite, and as you'll see in this video, his jab mechanics are kinda poor. Madrimov was able to check Crawford's jab all night while Crawford was getting credit for landing it. Madrimov had a lot of success in the elite hand dominance battle, neutering Crawford's jab and or forcing Crawford to rely on his athleticism to land it a little bit while also getting himself in some sticky situations. Madrimov was able to see all of Crawford's jabs, and when in position he was able to react to all of them because Terence Crawford has a lot of tails on his jab. Terence Crawford's jab isn't very technical, it's quick. Terence Crawford isn't a technician, he's primarily an athlete. For years I had made the point that Terence Crawford is routinely outboxed at the B level, and it's his power that bails him out. But back to his jab. No setup, just speed. And before his fist starts moving forward, look at how the elbow that's tucked next to his body starts to flare out. What makes this tell even bigger is that when the elbow flares out, the fist naturally drops just a little bit. Sometimes more, sometimes less. It's a double tell. And one thing that makes Terence Crawford's very telegraphed jab also very weak is the fact that it's a crooked punch throughout most of its trajectory. And by the time he unfurls it completely where it's turned over and he's hitting you with the knuckles, you have plenty of opportunity to break its kinetic chain by folding it up just as Madrimov did right there. Single, naked, elbow flare jab. Look at where it ends up after Madrimov folds it up. Single, naked jab, elbow flares, Madrimov sees it, counters. The tucked elbow starts to flare, so you know the jab is coming. From this angle it's a little harder to see, but you can clearly tell that Crawford's elbow flares out right before the fist comes forward. So what you can do in this instance is just walk through that jab, fold it over for Crawford. Just make sure you throw your rear hand while you do that, or Crawford will throw his. One other reason why Crawford's jabs are weak is because he wants to bait you in so that he could counter you. Madrimov understands that, which is why instead of just jumping in behind that jab, he level changes, feints, freezes Crawford, and cracks him over the top. Crawford's elbow flares, Madrimov changes levels in response, makes him drop his hands, and cracks him over the top. Couple more instances of folding the jab.
the game, 82 thrown.
And 2 more of folding that telegraph crooked jab and making him pay for it.
And he's landing it.
I know calling Crawford's jab weak goes against the narrative, so here's some evidence. Even though Crawford lands probably the best jab of the fight, It sounds and looks impactful. Madrimov counters right back with a much better punch.
Even if they're great shots to the body.
But Crawford did make an adjustment which allowed him to have more success with his jab. He started stepping over hard to his right. But, as you just saw, Crawford's adjustment ultimately favored Madrimov, and here's why.
Even if they're jabs.
Moving to.
Oh boy, look at the positioning here. Who wants to see a video entitled, quote, Terence Crawford, Footwork Problems, unquote. Anyway, even though Terence gets the drop on Madrimov there by using footwork, Madrimov is able to take away Terence Crawford's jab because, well, it's a Terence Crawford jab. But so long as he threw it out of range, he was pretty safe and it looked good to the people just itching to give Bud points. But as soon as he telegraphed it from range with Madrimov's feet set, Madrimov was there to counter it. So Bud ended up throwing a lot of his jabs out of range, also as a means of controlling space, with his fanboys inevitably scoring a lot of the nonsense. However, Crawford had good success with his jab when he was trying to catch Madrimov out of position, which, albeit is a technical adjustment, it mostly relies on athleticism and size.
You know what? Now he's able to first round win. And doing this is
with Crawford set and Madrimov out of position, those were the best jabs that Crawford landed all night. They were quick, snappy, accurate, they disrupted Madrimov's rhythm and in some cases even snapped his head back. But they weren't powerful jabs. Even this last one that looked and sounded pretty good, the sound was really a result of, yes, Crawford hitting Madrimov, but also hitting his arm and Madrimov hitting Crawford to the body, which probably accounted for the thud.
A little bit of a red, a little bit of a red, a little bit of a red, a little bit of a red.
But even with Madrimov out of position, it was still difficult to catch him.
yeah, it's gonna be difficult for the
Crawford
right there.
Because Crawford always telegraphs his jab.
Tough fight to score, but
And he didn't double it up much at all, probably because he was anticipating the counter.
I agree with you.
Around him before he threw that right hand.
And this is what people get wrong about Terence Crawford, calling him a very good boxer. He's a very good counter puncher. A boxer, lead puncher in this instance, would probably throw a double jab, keep his opponent off balance and score. A counter puncher wants to draw you into his wheelhouse so that he could counter. Does Crawford really want Canelo in range, or does he want to keep Canelo off balance with Canelo's poor footwork with that double jab? But if the jab is so telegraphed and weak, Canelo might just walk right through it. And looking to gain advantageous positioning carries the risk of you miscalculating or your opponent setting you up, where all of a sudden you find yourself in a 50-50 confrontation with the more athletic guy.
Both guys aren't deviating.
And 50-50 positioning is not a 50-50 exchange when in response to your weak jab, your opponent is throwing the type of right hand that slept Amir Khan. Whoa. Remember that? Crazy. Anyway, even if Crawford is able to catch his opponent out of position, his flawed jab is not likely to do much damage and could just as well be completely taken away from him.
They're the same level.
7-1.
Exactly. That really gets that buck trying to.
And Bud
Not ready.
Oh boy, I could already hear the criticism, especially from those who think Bud has an amazing, powerful jab. Those aren't even jabs! They're probes! Yeah, the same probes you were counting as great jabs when Bud barely touched Madrimov with the leather of the glove. Yeah, a jab probe is a weak jab that got Terence Crawford in some hot water when he used it with Madrimov set and in punching range. At first, Madrimov probably just couldn't believe this was happening, so he just said, "Get out of here with that shit."
experience in these big fights.
And then he started timing it, getting better at it as the fight wore on.
Entering.
That was an.
but does not want to be doing that in front of Canelo, as it's another weakness his jab sometimes has. Sometimes Madrimov was able to take away Crawford's jab with feints. And sometimes Crawford just elected not to control the space between them.
Some damage, you know.
Terence Crawford decided to go rock'em sock'em because, just as in many of his fights at this B level, he had up until this point been outboxed and had to come back from behind.
You still think they're ahead.
Using his jab had not brought about the desired outcomes, so he abandoned it.
I don't let you take.
Or he just dumbed it down.
He may be a right hook by Madrimov on the.
Madrimov took his jab away.
We got to start asking why he's not picking it up.
But Crawford did adjust. Sometimes he would feint, just as there he dips and feints with his lead hand. How successful was he though? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I don't know, man. It was just the same speed, same rhythm, and it was that same Crawford jab. And even if he switched up the speed and the rhythm, the jab was still telegraphed. And Madrimov's lead hand dominance coupled with Crawford's predictability made that tactic mostly useless.
Much different.
So eventually Madrimov was able to time that dip feint, and he made him pay.
This man is equally as good so much.
Hell yeah.
I think orthodox.
Bud Crawford, I like how he picked up Bud Crawford. I like how he picked up ground.
One other significant adjustment I saw from Crawford was trying to get around that lead hand fold from Madrimov, but even when he did get around it, that is, he was really out the frame and couldn't score. Madrimov saw that too, and the punch wasn't landing in the scoring area. It annoyed him at best. So in closing, because of how telegraphed and predictable Terence Crawford's jab is, Madrimov was able to just outright avoid a good 50% of them. Then he avoided and countered with varying success, maybe another 5%. Because Bud's jab is a long-range telegraph sent over Chinesian power lines, Madrimov was able to swat that shit down or otherwise block it, maybe even 30% of the time. And then he would do that and make him pay. Because of Bud's bad punch mechanics, the inability to set up his punches, and the unwillingness to commit, his jab is weak. So even in those instances where Crawford was able to score with his jab, maybe 10% of the time, it didn't have much of an effect. Not only was Madrimov unfazed and still pursuing the fight with Crawford, in many instances he was able to counter Crawford's jab, after again getting hit with it first. And here's one thing we never saw in the video, something I didn't talk about because, well, it's impossible to prove a negative, at least in this context. Did you once see Terence Crawford land a power shot after landing his jab? He never even landed a double jab in this fight. So how good is this jab, really? And more importantly, is it good enough to beat Canelo? And while Canelo himself hasn't shown a good jab in years, so what? Madrimov proved that you don't need a jab at all to beat Crawford, to take away his limp dick jab.
The fight after the fight is that people want to see Crawford and Canelo. But after watching this tonight, do you think Crawford's more likely to beat Canelo before this, or no?
I don't think he should be moving up to super middleweight. There's a limit to greatness, man. There's a limit. You can't always be biting off more than you can chew.